Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, the podcast show number 405 with your host, Lauren Gray.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hospitality Marketing, the podcast. I am your host, Lauren Gray, and this is episode number 406. So each week we spend around 20 to 30 minutes sharing the most interesting tools, news, and techniques being used in marketing for the hospitality industry. We also do a quick recap of our weekly live TV show, This Week in Hospitality Marketing, which airs every Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern U.S. time on the Hospitality Channel TV station. So with that, let's get started.
And now, today's new resource tool.
So our tools for review this week, given in light of the fact that we are in the processes of a transition come the end of June, here we are in May, but it's not soon enough to start talking about this. As a matter of fact, we should have been talking about this and have been for the past couple of years, is the change from Universal Analytics to GA4. With that comes a new focus on data. So our tools for review this week are related to data. Our first tool is a name change. It used to be Data Studio for Google. It's now called Looker Studio. Don't understand quite the change, but I guess I should look it up in some dialogues as to why they decided to make the change to Looker. It seems just weird. But anyway, Looker Studio is Google's new data studio platform, which creates dashboards for the data beyond the traditional pre-canned functionalities of analytics dashboards. It allows you to customize the interaction between data, taking the data sets that you're wanting to use and place them against each other so that you have a more visual representation. Plus, also, it's a dynamic data studio or a dashboard creator in the sense that you can define on the on the horizontal navigation bar on the top, variances of dates, variances of devices, variances, whatever you'd like, that would change the entire data set represented below that on the dashboard. This allows for a more robust interactive data rather than a static print me out a report one that can't be changed or modified unless you reprint another version of it. So that tool is incredibly valuable. And the nice part of it is, which nice, bad, good, bad, is that it's free from Google, obviously, because they get to use all your data. But it's a very functional, useful tool, especially for cost savings value proposition. The next one is not free. As a matter of fact, it's quite hefty in its price tag, depending upon how much you use it for. But it's an old standby in the sense that it has been around for a number of years. Highly useful, have used it, and very interesting in its way of being used. It's not as advanced, I shouldn't say advanced, it's not as scaled as some of the larger platforms for BI intelligence or data usage and statistical information, but it's called Tableau.com. If you're not familiar with Tableau, Tableau.com, it's an incredibly cool tool. It really allows you, more so than the Data Studio, or Looker Studio, still getting used to changing the name. It allows you to pull from other sources of data and create correlations of data from that. It allows you to structure. It's much more of a BI or business intelligence tool. And for that reason, it is much more useful in comparison of using multiple sources of data. In a simplistic way of saying it, if you wanted to take in your other data from your Facebook advertising or your Instagram advertising or your Pinterest advertising or your Twitter advertising or whatever it is, and have that in comparison to the same metrics that you're using for, say, Google ads and your website traffic and what have you, based on correlation of dates or what have you, it allows you to do that, and also allows you to robustly create visualizations. And for that matter, Looker Studio does the same too. You can make your traditional pie charts, bar charts, spaghetti charts. All of those things can be done on either of the platforms. Tableau allows for a variety of other sources to be brought into its dashboard. And it's by far not the only BI function tool. It is one of the more traditionally mainstayed ones, the ones that have been tried and true and tested. There is literally a open field of people offering services that are similar to what Tableau does in the sense of creating reporting tools, dashboards, and so forth. But Tableau's real value proposition is its analytical capability. You can create conditionals and try to calculate confidence factors associated with the information that's being presented. So you can actually try to begin to query data as to looking to compare data sets and derive an answer from them. It's not just looking at a static report and seeing bar charts and this one's lower than this one or this spaghetti line's higher than that one. It's actually being able to correlate data and give you an answer if you base the question on the data, like, is this source more productive than this source? And you give it the parameters of conversion values, dollars spent, revenue generated, and it can actually draw comparisons for you. You can then put that into a report that says, here's your highest performing channels, here is your most useful results in ROI. Whatever correlations you want to create, it can create it, which makes it very useful in the BI intelligence world. The last one is a little bit more of a smaller scale, new one, which is a lot of variety of ways that it's a little bit more down to earth for a lot of people that are familiar with the Excel of the world, Excel program from Microsoft, and of course Google Sheets. And that is a platform called Retable. Just recently began using it for one primary reason, which I'll get to. But Retable is really cool in the sense that it uses Excel and Google Sheets to create a different user dashboard. Now, it was built with the concept of optimizing your HR data and collectively putting it into cards of data for each individual employee, keeping track of so forth and so on. But the real value I found with Retable is its function capability. Retable has one very powerful, unique function capability, and that is to take a lot of actual physical addresses, 123 Mulberry Lane, downtown USA, it's kind of thing, and actually put it on a map. Now, why do I say that that's valuable to me? Because for me, one of the hardest, arduous things to do is to translate the physicality of addresses. Like, say, for instance, I wanted to know who stayed at our hotel from their address last month. Let's just take a data set. Last month, for April, I wanted to know everybody that stayed at our hotel. So I have all their addresses in my guest folio. Now, I'm not looking to them to correlate it by name. I want to look at just the geographies, the anonymized. I'm not using this against any privacy policies whatsoever. I'm not looking at this to go over and derive sending them emails or sending them snail mail or anything like this. It's really to collectively understand the geographic sourcing of my business and anonymizing it, that I don't know whose address it is when I'm looking at these things. I'm just taking collectively all the addresses and saying this is where they are. This platform, handy-dandily, will go over and put little pins in a map for me. So it shows me geographically where they're from. Now, there is other geographic sources, like your analytics will show you geographically where people are searching for where they're looking at your website and so forth, and you can timestamp them as to where they were looking from. And then you can follow them through in conversion, determine what the viewership from that geographic area produced in the sense of revenue. And that's a great, valuable resource tool. This is a look at other data sources. The example that I gave is a simple one of taking addresses and putting them in to see, who actually stayed with us from where, and determine drive markets and radiuses and feeder markets and validations of feeder markets and what have you. It's very handy for that. So it also has a lot of other functions that are unique to being able to visually translate line bar data into more usable, interactive sets of data. You're able to organize them into groups that you can say, I want all this information to be collectively put together, and use that in a display of some sort. Ironically, it also goes and allows you to connect to a variety of sources. It does have integrations like Zapier and so forth. So if you want to plug and play it into other resources of data, the limitations, of course, with Zapier and Pabbly and so forth is that not all data sets within a platform are available for use in translating the data to another user. But incredibly helpful for the high-level static data that you are looking for. So those are our three tools. Long explanation for three tools, but let's review them again very quickly. You have lookerstudio.google.com, you have tableau.com, and you have retable.io, retable.io. And those are our three tools of the week.
Now, for this week's hospitality technique.
So our technique this week, dashboards, BI, and reports, oh my. With the fact that data will turn front and center in the coming weeks, very few weeks away, actually, for those who have not prepared themselves for the transition from UA to GA4, dashboards and data are going to become a very hot topic. I imagine in the conferences to come in this summer with HSMI and ALHOA and AHLA and so forth, you're going to see a lot of people talking about data usage, data reporting, AI in data. Probably a lot of people talking about more and more about AI, whatever. We'll get to those in coming conversations as well. But the idea of having dashboards and business intelligence tools and reports, let's define some differences. And for those who have followed our shows and our live shows and so forth, you know that there's many times we talk about the difference between reports and analytics. Reports are static. They're a representation of information. Reports can be helpful because they can allow you to look at data in such formatted ways to see insights as to correlations or results or variances that you would not normally know unless you were to be looking at the data from it. That being said, reports are static, usually forensic because it has to take historical data to generate the report, and rather stationary, kind of a slice in time. This is what this information tells you when you pulled this report. End of the month reports, quarterly reports, PACE reports, whatever it is, it's a slice in time. It's a pause and a reflective look. Analytics is an ongoing evaluation of data, usually from reports, usually related to at and previous data, meaning you could have dynamic data like the Looker Studio we referred to, which is showing delayed data by about 4 hours, but active data of things that are happening up to a certain point in time, and then backwards as to all the other things that have happened prior to that. And from that, you can analyze pace, trend, those are the two biggest ones, propensities, correlations, success ratios. Lots of things can come from an analytics perspective. But the reason why I bring up the third report, or third aspect of this, is BI, business intelligence. Business intelligence does not just what analytics does with reporting data and forensically historical data, but it also begins to extrapolate the potential of what that data means for future things. It's the first way of looking at data going forward. And BI, business intelligence tools, right now are being more of a driving a Maserati to the grocery store, in the sense that it's being used more for historical review of data in a more enhanced way. Correlations, just like I mentioned with using Tableau just a couple of seconds ago, and Looker Studio and Retable and so forth, of looking at comparisons of data and variant sources of data to gain insights that you did not have, having not looked at the data that way, to make possible changes in your strategies going forward. The business intelligence tool in that scenario is really looking at the ability to correlate those data sources to be reviewed. That's wonderful, and it's very helpful and incredibly valuable to use BI intelligence tools that way. But the underutilized and the true upper value of business intelligence tools is the ability to use them forward-thinking, forward-looking. And this is where we do begin to talk about the buzzwords of the day, which is AI. The ability to look at data, define the data, define the values of the data, and define the interest in what the data would say, doing that with an AI tool, so that the business intelligence function of it now goes forward. Here is your current review of 120 days out, and from that review, here are some actions that we think should be under consideration or things of concern. The aspect of your pace is below the year over the year. Your rates are lower the year over the year. The inventory availability, because you're going to be under the knife for redevelopment and so forth, is going to be restrictive into your ability for revenue generation. Whatever it is, business intelligence tools should give you the ability to sometimes, Captain, obviously, point out things that you are aware of. That only validates the other stuff that they also start referring to that you may not have been aware of, that makes you pause and think, what's the value proposition of that being correct? What's the confidence factor is the actual mathematical way of looking at it. What is the probability of it being what it interprets as the answer? And we talked about this on the show before, where confidence factors of 85% and above heed my attention, because that means it is most probably the way it is being read to us in data. When you get from 70 to 85%, it's likely that it's going to go this way. 60 to 70%, there's a trend that it can go that way. Anything below 60% is really a coin flip of saying it could or couldn't, but right now it seems to be something to be noticed. That's kind of a rough stick in the sand measurement of percentage of confidence factors that come out of this. Obviously, you start talking about the 90 percentiles. You should never be above 95 percentile. If it is, it's such a captain obvious statement, you shouldn't even be asking the question. But the idea is you are seeing now the data in a new light, in a future tense. What am I seeing now to make changes in the future that I would be proactive in doing, rather than reactive in discovering through a static report or analysis of a report? It's a shift in perspective. It's wonderful to look at your historical data and to understand nuances that you may not have understood at the time of them happening, and to learn from those lessons proactively going forward. It's also incredibly valuable to understand things and correlations that you didn't consider and realize that there was leverage points that you didn't know about that you need to reevaluate in future tense. But the real value of dashboards, BIs, reports, oh my, is the fact that it begins to translate that data into proactive future tense decision making. It allows you to see farther forward, to know what you need to correct now, where the small nudge is much more influential than the large whack that you have to do later. And by moving over to shifting channels, shifting budgets, changing strategies, expanding aspects of what you're doing in certain places, because it looks like there's a good opportunity for it to yield better for you, that's the real value of business intelligence, the usages of dashboards, the usages of reports, the usages of analytics. So, our technique this week, dashboards, BI, and reports, oh my. That brings us to our news and show review.
Now, this week's hospitality news that you should know.
So our topic on the live show today was how storylines can redefine targeting. This comes from my travels in Europe right now. We are so quick as marketers to define, based on metrics of numbers, what people are doing and using to derive decision makings for conversions. We refer to it as the funnel, the discovery, education, conversion funnel. And there's little extra slices in all three of those, but pretty much those are the three major progressions that people go through. And numerically, the largest number of people engaged at discovery get culled down based on their interest choices and whether you've made the cut, so to speak, into the education phase, where they begin to understand more about what it is that you have to offer, or your destination, or all the things that they are looking at of interest for their decision model, which culls down the audience size to a point where they're actually making a conversion decision. That's the simplistic version of the funnel discussions that we have been hounding and persisting about for all these times. We, in the process as marketers, look at certain metrics to see whether or not we are correctly targeting the people that we think have the highest opportunity to want our product. Now, one of the earliest lessons when we talk about this when it comes to marketers is whatever you do, don't sell it to yourself. If you're always selling to yourself, like, boy, I'd buy that if I had that ad, or I'd buy that because that looks like a great offer, that's only representing itself to you and your market. That's a very fragmented market. It's a very small market. There's so many people that want your product that have nothing to do with your personal interests or whatever. That's a biasness that you're putting into your marketing strategy. That's the hardest lesson to teach owners. Owners like marketing that appeals to their interests. And this goes back to an old joke about photography. When you're taking a photo shoot of a hotel, always make sure you take a picture of the porte-cochere of the interest, because the owner loves that picture. That's what's on their wall. Why? Because it's their investment. That's a picture of their product, what they invested their money into. It has nothing to do with the clients, though, that glamour shot. Nobody really needs to know necessarily what the porte-cochere looks like. It's not an unuseful picture, but it's not the highest use picture. How's that? So for that reason, marketing is based on metrics. Who are we appealing to? What are they using to facilitate us? What channels of opportunity are they using? What do they respond to in the campaigns that we're running on? What channel that we're running on? Those are the conversion values. Content-wise, is it related to what they're looking for? That used to be the old keyword strategies that was taken away from us from Google when they took away keywords and gave us attribution strings. We're supposed to see now more the engagement progress that a guest had. And that's why GA4 is being changed, why Universal Analytics is being changed to GA4, because the session-based model of Google Analytics Universal was too prohibitive in knowing all the variations of what else they included in their discovery process. Now, with all data dimensions being measured in GA4, we get to watch everything and decide how we understand what everything is by just asking questions, particularly to the data. And more of those conversations as the podcast go forward, and the live show for that matter, as we get closer to D-Day in July 1st. So the idea of storylines in our live show discussion was about stepping back and understanding more of the persona of who's looking. What is their motivation for looking? Breaking it down more into their place in life than it is the metrics of their functioning searches. I say this from looking at the difference between a family travel versus a couple's travel, or a couple with a pet like we are traveling with our dog right now. We have different values of concern. One of our first, if not one of our first criteria when looking for places to stay on our European trip was pet friendliness. Now, if obviously your product or property does not represent itself as pet friendly, and we've had very ardent discussions about what's considered pet friendly, pet tolerant, pet intolerant, and not pet friendly at all, you might say, I don't really care about pet. I don't want people traveling with pets. Great. Then exclude that as an option and realize that you have to accentuate the fact that instead of catering to people that are looking for pet friendliness, you need to cater to people that prefer not to be in a property that has pet friendly capabilities. It's the flip of a coin. Same too when it comes to storylines and story arcs. If people are traveling with their children, anybody that's had children realizes traveling with a 3 to 5 year old or a 5 to 7 year old or 7 to 9 year old or 9 to 11 or 11 to 13 or 13 to 16, 16 and up is a world of difference. Less between 13 and up because then they already know everything. The idea is that you have different criteria about what you're looking for in your travel experiences. And also accommodations. Children below the age of 11, fine to be in the same room with the parents. You start getting above 11 and 13, no. They need a separate room. You also need separate entertainment. You also need separate interests. You also have to have collective values. You have to have lots of different things to what makes travel with children at different ages. Well, that should be something you understand from firsthand property level experiences. Who's walking in your door? Who comes to your hotel or resort? At what time of year that you're looking to drive business? And if so, then you need to make sure your content is matching that your offers match that, your messages and marketing mention that. All of those aspects need to be put together. And don't try to play both sides of the field. Don't try to put yourself off as a family resort and then on the other have a whole separate campaign to non-family urban-esque, metrosexual travelers that are looking for chic new places to go to. They show up in the lobby together, and your front desk is the first to suffer from that engagement because they look across the place and there's screaming kids that are tired of being in the car. They're sitting there thinking they're going to get a quiet, peaceful, cocktail-driven poolside experience, and they realize that's not going to happen because the kids are going to be splashing, yelling, screaming, and everything else going on. You've now shot yourself in the foot both ways because the families are going, oh crap, those people are going to be bitching at us because we're by the pool with the kids and they're not going to be happy. Again, don't play both sides of the coin. Pick your lane, stay in your lane. That lane comes from storylines. Storylines are how do you approach the different purposes that people travel for that your resort or hotel accommodate. We got into great more detail about it on the live show. Please, by all means, listen for the live show number 406. It's forever on reruns at the Hospitality Marketing. Can't say the right words today. So many websites. HospitalityChannel.tv always has our I Love Lucy rerun shows along with this podcast. Also, you can catch it on our TV station, Hospitality Channel, which is on your Roku, Google, Amazon, or Apple TV. You can see it there. Which brings us to, remember, you can find this podcast on Google Play, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher, 39 platforms actually, and counting. Or even in Amazon's Alexa, Google Assistant, and Siri. Just ask any of them to play the Hospitality Marketing Podcast, and it will. It's a skill that we built for all three of them. Of course, no matter which one you use, if you like the show, please make a comment and rate us, rank us. That allows others to find us. And of course, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, we do it every week. Simply smash the subscribe button on whatever platform you discovered us on, and you will get the freshest, newest content of our podcast every week, along with also knowing what's going on with our live show. And as mentioned on our live show, we simulcast that in addition to being on our TV station, also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So you can catch us, and Twitch for that matter. You can catch us just about everywhere. So, and our live show always goes out Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern U.S. time, which is really odd for my timetable that I'm at right now in Europe, because we are 6 hours different. So it's a little strange for it, but it's still fun. All said and done, thank you so much for your time. My name is Lauren Gray, and I look forward to talking to you all next week.
You have been listening to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, the podcast show 405, brought to you by Hospitality